Have you ever heard whispers of a forbidden scripture that divides all of humanity into three distinct categories? Rumor says it was once considered for inclusion in sacred texts, but was ultimately cast aside for its unsettling claims. This chilling volume supposedly reveals hidden truths about who we are, why we exist, and how our destinies might already be mapped out. Some say it was locked away to keep us from discovering our true potential, and the frightening consequences of remaining in the dark. Ever since fragments of this mysterious text began circulating, people have debated its authenticity and the possibility that powerful groups worked tirelessly to conceal it. Whispers suggest that, if taken seriously, it has the power to alter how we see our spiritual journeys and might even reshape the entire concept of faith. But there's more. This secretive manuscript outlines three archetypes of human existence, each facing a different fate. Critics claim it's pure fantasy, while others insist it's a blueprint for spiritual awakening. Either way, the question remains, is it dangerous knowledge or the ultimate key to transcending the ordinary? Before we unveil each category and the dark warnings they carry, let's explore the origins of this unsettling text and why it was said to be banned from the Bible in the first place. Thousands of years ago, numerous manuscripts floated around. Early religious circles, many of them grappling with profound questions about the nature of reality. Very few were canonized, but many vanished or were deliberately left out. This particular manuscript, sometimes called the Three Paths, is rumored to have been part of a larger compendium of spiritual writings. Over the centuries, it surfaced sporadically, only to slip back into obscurity. Some suspect that official institutions labeled it heretical because it granted individuals too much insight into spiritual autonomy, something certain authorities could have seen as a threat. Accounts from different eras mention how the text uses startling language, referencing an internal spark in humanity that can be either ignited or extinguished. If left dormant, one risks becoming trapped in emptiness. If awakened, unimaginable growth awaits. Scholars, both modern and ancient, have speculated that these passages challenge the notion of a universal path to salvation, implying that not everyone walks the same road or even shares the same spiritual capacity. That alone might explain why leaders of the past wanted it buried. Controversy flares up whenever fragments of this scripture resurface. Some readers interpret it as symbolic, a poetic means of guiding souls toward higher truths. Others swear by its literal meaning, insisting that three distinct types of people truly exist, each locked into its own destiny unless they discover the hidden route toward liberation. The debate intensifies when we ask, did religious authorities ban this text to maintain their monopoly on truth or to protect seekers from stumbling into spiritual chaos? Beyond rumors of church suppression, there's also a modern push to keep the manuscript quietly tucked away. Critics argue it could foster elitism or paranoia, dividing society into hierarchies of higher and lower beings. Meanwhile, supporters say the only real danger is ignoring its potential revelations. In our fast-paced digital age, talk of transcending the mundane can be both inviting and alarming. Now it's time to see what all the fuss is about. Three categories of humans, each with its own challenges and destinies. Some claim these categories correspond to universal stages of spiritual evolution. Others label them unchangeable conditions. The truth may be somewhere in between, but one theme persists. Ignoring which group you fall into could come at a dreadful cost. Below, we'll reveal each archetype and explore the possible reasons this unsettling knowledge was suppressed for so long. Strap in for an unsettling dive into the unknown. Just remember, everything here remains open to your interpretation. The hidden manuscript's clouded past. Shrouded in legend, the so-called Three Paths text is believed to have circulated among early Christian sects before the official biblical canon was set. Rumors hint that it challenged conventional dogma by suggesting that not all souls share the same spiritual capacity. Such ideas stirred outrage. If certain groups were inherently more enlightened, how would the Church maintain its universal teachings? Scholars argue that these radical claims threatened traditional authority, fueling the ban that shoved the text into obscurity. Few records definitively confirm who wrote this manuscript. Some scholars propose a splinter sect, deeply invested, in mysticism and cosmic dualities. Others dismiss it as a Gnostic forgery, meant only to provoke. But the text's references to material watchers, knowledge seekers, and soul illuminators remain eerily relevant in our era of consumerism and spiritual searching. Could these categories genuinely map out modern life, or are they vestiges of an ancient obsession with dividing the masses? Skepticism abounds. Critics say these divisions can't possibly capture the complexity of human nature. Yet believers counter that the categories aren't static prisons, but rather snapshots of a soul's current state, and that with awareness, one can ascend to a higher mode of being. The clash of opinions deepens the manuscript's mystique, and every so-called rediscovery renews speculation about whether it poses a threat to mainstream religion or to our sense of self. It's worth noting that a powerful rumor persists. Certain medieval councils supposedly declared the text spiritually volatile, ordering it to be sealed away. Did those leaders fear people would realize they didn't need a formal hierarchy to guide them toward enlightenment? Or was the text simply too confusing, too open to misinterpretation, thus better left hidden? Such questions remain, fueling the legend that the text was outright banned from becoming scripture. 3 human archetypes, a quick preview. The manuscript divides people into 3 groups: the earthbound, the insightful, and the transcendent. Earthbound individuals cling to material desires, wealth, status, carnal pleasures. Insightful types stand between worlds. They chase wisdom yet remain tethered to worldly pursuits. The transcendent appear to operate on a different plane altogether, driven by a cosmic sense of purpose. Whether these categories are literal or symbolic, each reveals both peril and promise. The text warns, remain earthbound too long, and spiritual progress might slip beyond reach. Why does this matter? If the text is right, recognizing your category could be the wake-up call that sparks transformative change, or the final nail in a coffin of stagnation. The earthbound risk never awakening to deeper truths. The insightful face a crossroads. They can climb toward transcendence or slide back into empty routines. As for the transcendent, their path isn't always smooth either. They must avoid isolating themselves in lofty ideals, ignoring the grounded realities of the world. Modern parallels jump out. Think of obsessive consumers, never fulfilled, no matter how many shiny products they collect. Or those who explore philosophy, science, or spirituality, but still can't detach from daily vanity. Then there are those rare souls who seem guided by an otherworldly calling. The scary part? The manuscript hints that your soul's readiness may determine whether you ever truly break free. If you're not prepared, you might be stuck in one category, unless you tap into the hidden spark the text repeatedly references. This is where controversy sharpens. Does the text actually claim some people are born earthbound forever? Or does it present a flexible ladder, encouraging us to climb higher? Many interpret it as a journey. Nonetheless, the mere suggestion that not everyone starts at the same baseline rankled religious authorities of the past. Why preach universal pathways if certain folks begin on a completely different plane? Why the church may have suppressed it? According to persistent rumors, early councils deemed the manuscript too disruptive. They believed it undermined unity by insinuating that specific souls had an inherent advantage in spiritual matters. Some documents suggest the text threatened the idea that a single dogma could save all equally. If the earthbound were at a disadvantage from birth, how could the church promise salvation for everyone? On the other side, a small but vocal group insisted the script was a challenge, not a condemnation, a push for each believer to rise above their present level. Despite official hostility, fragments persisted in underground circles. Marginalized. Sects often labeled heretics clung to the hope that these teachings would spark personal revelation. Mystics claimed the text was never about elitism, but about the hidden potential in every person, one that typically lies dormant unless ignited by critical self-reflection. Over centuries, whispers kept alive the idea that the 3 paths were more than allegory. They were a pragmatic framework for deep spiritual evolution. Whether the church truly banned it, or the text simply faded into obscurity, remains hotly debated. Some historians propose that it was overshadowed by more polished theological works, while conspiracy theorists see a deliberate cover-up. Yet every time a new fragment surfaces, be it in monastic libraries or private collections, the controversy reignites. People question how different our spiritual landscape might be if this text had been widely read instead of locked away. That very question has propelled the text into modern discussions of self-improvement, mysticism, and alternative spirituality. But was the Church genuinely afraid of it? We can't ignore the possibility that the text's claims were simply too radical for a faith built on uniform redemption. For leadership that prided itself on a universal message, acknowledging spiritual stratification might have opened a door to dissent, doubt, and disunity. Modern echoes of an ancient warning. Look around. Consumer culture floods us with temptations. Our identities often hinge on purchases, social media status, and external validation. The earthbound archetype rings true, as many chase fleeting pleasures while ignoring inner growth. Meanwhile, an ocean of self-help guides entices the insightful, offering enlightenment for a price, and the transcendent. We glimpse them in communities that prioritize meditation, altruism, and cosmic awareness. The manuscript's categories may be ancient, but their echoes are deafening today. With technology amplifying our desires, critics argue the earthbound archetype is more entrenched than ever. Yet supporters of the text claim modern times also offer unmatched opportunities for spiritual progress. Instant access to knowledge, global communities of seekers, and new platforms for debate. Could we be closer to transcending old limitations, or are we spiraling deeper into materialism? This question often divides commentators. Some say that while the text's message is relevant, it fosters needless division. Why classify humanity when we could emphasize unity? Others insist that naming these archetypes is a catalyst for transformation. Recognizing your current mindset, be it trapped in material obsessions or perched on the brink of epiphany, can spark the change you need. It's less about condemnation and more about reflection. Are you content to remain earthbound, or do you yearn for something beyond? In a world of increasing anxiety and disconnection, any map offering clarity draws attention. The three paths might be divisive, but for some it's the jolt that shifts their perspective. Nonetheless, the text warns, ignoring your category doesn't spare you from its implications. You might be comfortable, but comfort can morph into complacency, alleged doom for the stagnant. One of the manuscript's most unsettling claims is that those who remain earthbound indefinitely risk losing their spiritual essence. Rumors suggest a dire outcome, like a candle snuffed out if it never finds the right spark. Interpreted literally, it implies permanent separation from whatever divine source underlies reality. Such stark warnings no doubt fueled the notion that the text was too extreme. Still, others read it figuratively, fail to evolve, and you sink into emptiness, never tasting higher fulfillment. It's no surprise that these ominous statements grabbed so much attention. Tales from medieval times mention pilgrims who sought out copies of the text in hopes of escaping a doomed fate. Some believed reciting certain passages or meditating on them could trigger an awakening. Others worried they'd sealed their demise the moment they realized they lacked a transcendent spark. Yet not everyone sees the text as pure dread. Mystical readers interpret these lines as motivational rather than fatalistic, like a teacher pushing a student to break through self-imposed limits. In that view, the earthbound are not condemned. They're simply at the starting gate, capable of leaping forward if they embrace reflection and discipline. The true horror, perhaps, lies in failing to recognize that the gate even exists. These foreboding ideas certainly fueled the script's reputation as a scary book. Whether that label was propaganda to keep believers in line or a genuine reaction to its stark worldview remains open for debate. The bottom line is that the text doesn't mince words about the cost of spiritual inertia, skeptics versus believers. Contemporary thinkers approach these divisions in different ways. Skeptics argue that labeling people as earthbound, insightful, or transcendent oversimplifies human complexity. They see it as a relic of ancient dualism, that lumps nuanced experiences into neat boxes. Believers, though, value the manuscript's blunt approach, likening it to a wake-up call. They claim that the moment you see yourself in one category, you're empowered to break free or push further. For them, the text isn't a verdict, it's a lens for self-discovery. So where does that leave everyday viewers like you, torn between dismissing these ideas as outdated or embracing them for potential growth? The starkness of the categories can be off-putting, yet that very bluntness has inspired countless people to reflect deeply on their motivations. How many times have you bought something only to feel empty a week later? Have you dabbled in spiritual teachings while still craving external praise? If nothing else, the text forces uncomfortable questions. And maybe that's its real power, to unsettle us into action. After all, nobody wants to hear they're stuck in a lower state. That discomfort can spur genuine introspection, leading to self-improvement, or it can trigger defensiveness and denial. Either way, the text has done its job, cracking open the door to deeper reflection. Critics maintain that such categorization can breed superiority complexes, especially among those who fancy themselves transcendent. But proponents counter that humility is key. To truly transcend, one must remain open, loving, and connected to those still finding their way. Otherwise, you're merely trading one trap for another, arrogance in place of ignorance. We're getting close to the final sections, but before we reveal the manuscript's last hidden hints about personal metamorphosis, here's a reminder. If you're finding value in these explorations, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and consider dropping a comment below. Your support fuels future content and helps us keep unearthing these mysterious topics. And if you really want to back our work, a super thanks goes a long way. Join this community. Let's keep the conversation alive, reflection and potential for growth. In many interpretations, the earthbound, insightful, and transcendent aren't rigid boxes, but dynamic points on a spectrum of growth. The text's repeated emphasis on an inner flame suggests that individuals can shift over time through intentional practice. That might mean questioning routine habits, seeking knowledge in forgotten wisdom, or forging a deeper bond with something sacred. The real takeaway: where you begin matters less than whether you commit to evolving. If the flame exists, it can be kindled. This hopeful spin challenges the notion that the text is grim. Rather than labeling people as hopelessly bound, it highlights the potential for ascension. Ironically, that might be the very insight that made established powers uneasy, because if you don't require an institutional framework to spark your inner flame, their authority diminishes. Small wonder there are tales of councils who wanted this teaching buried. Still, cynics respond that self-improvement is more complicated than flipping a spiritual switch. They see these categories as overly simplistic, ignoring socio-economic factors or psychological struggles. Yet even they often concede there's symbolic value in recognizing we can get stuck in ruts, be they materialistic obsessions or half-hearted searches for meaning. And sometimes an ancient push is exactly what modern hearts need to wake up. Were these revelations too raw for a world used to tidy doctrines? Possibly. Or maybe the text's black and white language was simply misunderstood. Regardless, the promise of metamorphosis stands out. Start in the mud if you must, but don't stay there. The ongoing mystery. What if the text remains unfinished or intentionally cryptic? Some fragments hint at deeper layers beyond the transcendent stage, suggesting a continuous evolution that never truly ends. Maybe that's why it was considered so radical. It implies we're not just vessels for salvation, but active co-creators of our destiny. Banning it might have safeguarded the status quo, ensuring only established narratives shaped spiritual understanding. Or it could have prevented well-meaning souls from stumbling into confusion. Tying everything together, it's clear that the Three Paths text refuses to fade from public imagination. It keeps resurfacing, beckoning curious minds to revisit its stark warnings and uplifting possibilities. Even without official recognition, it's found a modern audience craving deeper significance. Whether you see it as an authentic lost gospel or a symbolic Gnostic script, one thing stands out. It demands that we confront our own place in the grand tapestry of existence. No single group, church councils, mystics, historians, or casual readers, can fully contain its power. It's a living enigma, shaped by each person who dares to engage with it. If it truly was banned from the Bible, perhaps it's because it hands responsibility directly to the individual, bypassing the need for external approval. Or maybe it was simply too bizarre for orthodoxy to absorb. Either way, it survives, whispering that we're more than we appear, and cautioning us not to settle for a life that stalls out before tapping into that potential flame. So, was this text truly suppressed to keep humanity from splintering into elitist camps, or from awakening to a radical freedom no institution could fully control? We may never know for certain, but each of us holds the spark that decides where we fall on the earthbound, insightful, transcendent continuum. The chilling truth is that if we stay blind to our potential, we risk slipping into a hollow existence. If we heed the manuscript's nudge, though, we might ignite a fire that no authority can extinguish. Thank you for joining us on this thought-provoking exploration. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and remember that growth often begins the moment you realize how much more there is to discover. The path is yours. Nobody else can walk it for you. Whether you view this scary book as reality or myth, let it challenge you to reach beyond what you thought possible. The next move, that's up to you.